Okay, so I'm about to start sharing my screen with you, and we're about to start our tour to Herodian, which is an amazing, wonderful place. Some of you have been there before, others did not yet. So I hope as soon as possible you will make it to Israel in your soul and body at the same time. And then we will be traveling to Herodian, among other places. And just before we start this presentation, next week we have a presentation by Maure Rosenberg, and she will be talking about her military service as an officer in the Iron Dome unit. And then Thursday, I will take you to a tour of the surroundings of Gaza Strip. So you will see what is there except of, Iron Dome and except of alarms, Tseva Dome, this famous stuff. So what I will try to do next week is to show you the beauty and the diversity of this region. So I hope that in the end of the tour, you will be convinced that it's not a bad place. And actually, you will understand why people stick to this area. So next week is sort of about Gaza Strip and its surroundings. And right now we're about to start the tour of Herodian, and I will start share screen now. Okay, so let's see. Second.
We're good.
Okay, can you see it? Can you see, my screen saying Herodian, Herodium, the palace in the desert? Okay.
Yep.
So if we have any new participants here, and I hope we do, so my name is Julia Newman, and I am a tour guide in Israel, in reality and virtually for the last 6 months or so. And we're about to start climbing this hill, okay? This is a pay-as-you-wish tour, and you have the PayPal account right here, and you're welcome to join me. So, where are we going? First of all, let's get just a moment of orientation. Here on the left, I will make an annotation, just a minute. Okay, all right. So here on the left, you can see the map of Israel, of course, and this is the red square, which is enlarged on the right. So we switch to the map, which is on the right, which is right in front of us now. And you can see Jerusalem, this big, weird looking patch. This is Jerusalem. Immediately to the south of it, this is Bethlehem. To the north, this is Ramallah. And immediately south of Bethlehem and just a little bit east, it's like southeast of Bethlehem, you can see this star here. Actually, the star should have been a bit closer to Bethlehem, but anyhow, this star southeast of Bethlehem, this is Herodian, and this is where we are going. And that means that we will be located right on the edge, right on the western edge, the western border of the Judean desert, which stretches all the way from Jerusalem, Bethlehem, all the way south along the Dead Sea. So this strip of land, okay, starting from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, east to the west coast of the Dead Sea, this is the Judean desert, which stretches down south all the way to more or less Sodom Mount. And another thing I want you to see on this map is location of Jericho. Okay, here is Jericho. We will be back just for a few minutes to Jericho towards the end of the presentation. And another thing for you to notice is the green line. Okay, you can see this green line, which is literally green on the map. This is the green line, which is the former border between Israel and Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, which is nowadays is the border between Israel and the Palestinian territories, or the West Bank, as they're often called, okay? So no politics, but I do want you to notice that we will be touring east of the green line. In other words, we will be touring the Palestinian territories, which are divided into 3 parts, okay? Again, no politics today, but I would like you to notice that there is the red board here. And those of you who toured Samaria with me, so I already talked about these red signs, red boards, which follow us literally all over the West Bank. So we are coming from the west, which is right on this picture. We just crossed the checkpoint, and immediately here you see these two red boards, which basically tell us that the Israeli citizens are not allowed beyond this point. So we will not take a right, because if we do take a right, so we will start driving towards Bethlehem, which is one of the cities of the Palestinian Authority, and Israelis are not allowed there. You as tourists can do that, of course. So we're not taking a right into, well, towards Bethlehem. We keep driving this road straight to the east, and within about 20 minutes or so, we will reach Herodian, okay, which is our destination. So this is what it looks like from an aerial photo. This is thanks to Google Earth. And here, this is Herodian. This is the hill we will be climbing and touring. And you can see that all around it, this is the desert. This is the outskirts of the desert. In Hebrew, it's called Sfar Hamidbar. And you can see that Herodian is actually surrounded by quite a few little villages, towns, with, well, some of these names, most of these names, I would say, are quite difficult to pronounce. And if you are familiar with Hebrew language, just a little bit to recognize the sound, so you may immediately tell that this is not a Jewish village, this is not a settlement, this is a little Arab town. So we're going to be at Herodian, which is one of the national parks. So this is fully controlled by the Israeli government, by the Israeli Authority. And it is surrounded by the Palestinian towns and villages, except of this one. You see this big one at the left lower corner. You see that it's better planned. I mean, as we just look at it, you can see that there is a difference between this one and the other ones, not just because of the size, but also because of the planning. You see that actually somebody thought about what should it look like. And this one is called Tekoa. Tekoa is a settlement, which means that this is a Jewish Israeli town at the West Bank. And Tekoa is located right above this valley, this dry riverbed, which is the valley, the riverbed of Tekoa, which flows downhill toward the Dead Sea, joins another huge, beautiful creek called Dalga, Nahal Dalga, and both of them join forces and float into the Dead Sea. So this is Tekoa. There is another settlement nearby. It's not on the map. It's a bit south from here, which is called Nokdim. And Nokdim is quite famous in Israel because this is where Avigdor Lieberman, one of the leading politicians in Israel, lives. Okay, so Nokdim and Tekoa. And Tekoa is named after the biblical town of Tekoa, which is the hometown of Prophet Amos. So we are, there is a biblical connection to this land as well. And biblical Tekoa is identified not far away from this modern Tekoa. So, okay, so we looked at it from the bird's view, and okay, we are getting closer. Now we take a bird's view at the palace, at the fortress, which is a palace which has a very special, very weird shape, okay? And you can see that it is actually located inside. It's like a little bowl inside this hill, which is partly natural and partly artificial. This is what Herodian looks like today after the archaeological excavation. We will approach Herodian from the right. You see, I hope you can see my cursor. This is where we are going to park, okay? Then we go to the bathroom right here. Okay, that was a long drive. And then we will enter this little visitor center. This is where you can get a gift. This is where I will get our entrance tickets. And then we will start walking uphill and we will walk more or less this way, and we will climb upstairs. You see, these are the original stairs, which were just recently excavated and open to the public. I mean, we could see those stairs long, long ago, but last time you guys came there, we had to hike uphill along this path, okay, which is modern path. It did not exist in King Herod's time. But now, and this is the reason for us to go there today, because it's finally possible, we will be walking upstairs, up these stairs, the monumental staircase, just as King Herod and his guests did. And we will also see the location of the tomb, which is here. This is the restoration of the monument of mausoleum. It does not exist there. You will see what you can see today, but this is where the tomb was located. So we are getting to the parking lot. There is a military base here on the left. And here, this is just a general view of these Arab town and villages surrounding Herodian. And here on the left, you see this is the road we used to get to Herodian. And right by the road, you can see this tower, okay? This tower is a minaret, meaning that this is a mosque, meaning that this is a Palestinian Muslim town. And, you know, it is, each time I see it, it is so strange, but that's the fact, you know. As an Israeli, I can drive this road, I can visit Herodian, which is basically located on this side of the road, but I'm not allowed, like legally, I'm not allowed to walk about 10 steps to the right and visit this mosque, because this one belongs to the Palestinian autonomy. And so as an Israeli, it is not for me. Okay, so we're not going this way, we're going this way. This is what Herodian looks like from like very close. You see that this here looks very round. It looks like a belly of a pregnant woman, maybe. Some people would say that this is very similar to Mount Tabor in the Galilee, which is true. The difference is that Mount Tabor is entirely natural, while this one is partly artificial. And that's what it looks like today. But some 2,000 years ago, when King Herod the Great chose this place to become his palace and fortress and name it after him, this is what it looked like according to the best understanding of the archaeologists. So this is the monumental staircase we are going to use. Here on the left, there is nothing yet here, because only in the later stage of the existence of Herodian, King Herod the Great decided to build his tomb here, okay? But when this place was a palace, so there was no tomb, okay? So we have actually two stages during the lifetime of Herod. One is a palace, second is a mausoleum. So to begin with, he built a palace with a huge, tall watchtower, huge monumental staircase. We're going to use beautiful little, theater on the right, and only later he chose to destroy the theater and to build the tomb. Okay, so this is the first stage. Later, you will see the second stage. So we are about to start climbing. This is the hill right next to us. We are going to be up here. You can see this wall on the top, okay? We are going to make it all the way up here. But before we start doing that, I want you to see a little movie on behalf of the National Parks Authority. And hopefully you will be convinced that it's actually worth the effort. So, okay, it's working on it. Just a minute. Okay. We are getting closer. National Parks Authority, they have better drone than I do, so we can see it from every possible angle. This is the theater we're going to visit. Here it is. Okay, this is the stage. This is the royal lounge which we'll be visiting later as well. Whoever made the video, you love the theater. And now we are inside the theater, as we will do in a few minutes. This is a brand new film which helps you to understand how beautiful the theater and the royal lounge is. And here. Okay, that's enough. Let's get back to our tour. I hope you are convinced. And assuming you are, as I said before, and as the name actually tells us, the whole thing is about King Herod the Great. The whole thing is there because of King Herod the Great. So let's say a few words about this king. First of all, King Herod the Great was not born a king, and he was not born Jewish. Well, that depends whom you ask. Okay. So in order to understand who he is and why he had such a difficult approach to his people and his people had such a difficult approach to him, just a very short version of the history of the 1st century BCE. The Hasmonean dynasty, the Jewish dynasty, the esteemed, the beloved Hasmonean Maccabean dynasty, ruled the land of Israel in the 2nd century BCE as a result of the success and victory of the Hasmonean battles against the Greek Empire. It took about 100 years, and the descendants of the Hasmonean Empire, the Hasmonean dynasty started fighting one against the other. And at some point, both of the leaders, both of them believed that they had to be the king. Both of them approached the Romans, and each one of them had that hope that the Romans will support him. In order to see what's actually going on around here, the Romans sent a delegation led by one of the most famous Roman military leaders, and that's Pompeius the Great. Pompeius arrived here back in 63 BCE, and instead of fully supporting one of the Hasmoneans and making him a king, he decided to stay, not him personally, but the Roman Empire stayed here, and the land of Israel became a Roman province. Well, since Pompeius did not want to stay here forever and ever, he had other things to do, so he needed somebody local to be in charge on behalf of the Roman Empire, and that somebody, that chosen leader on behalf of the Romans, happened to be King Herod's father. So King Herod was born from a leader. He was the son of the leader, not yet a king, and he became the ruler of the Galilee to begin with. Moving forward, 40 BCE, we have one of the Hasmonean descendants who joined forces with the Parthians. That's another nation, another kingdom in more or less present-day Syria. And they decided, the Parthians and Mattathias Antigonus, the Hasmonean leader, they decided to get rid of King Herod. They started chasing him. He had to run away from Jerusalem. He ran away all the way to Herodian, but Herodian did not yet exist. So there was a battle right at the footsteps of Herodian. He escaped. He survived. He almost lost his mom, but she made it as well. And they escaped to Masada. He left his family at Masada. He escaped to the Nabateans. He made it to Rome. To make the long story short, eventually the Romans decided that, you know what, you will be the king. And starting from now on, 37 BCE, and this is why we have that date in golden color, more or less, 37 BCE, he was declared a king of Judea. And he was the king until 4 BCE when he passed away. Now, you know, the name Herod is synonymous to cruelty. And just a few phrases you can see here, you know, telling how horrible he is. These are, well, this is a very short description out of a much longer one, which is found in a book from the 1st century AD, which is called Aliyat Moshe, the Ascension of Moses. And as you can see, he is described as a beast, as a nightmare, and even more so for the Christians, because in the New Testament, it is specifically said that King Herod the Great commanded to kill the innocent babies. He commanded to kill the babies which are 2 years and younger because he wanted to get rid of Jesus. Okay, this is a New Testament story which tells you how evil he was, but we have other descriptions by other Roman sources, and you know, just to finalize his personality, I would say a Roman leader, Marcus Agrippa, he said it's better to be King Herod's pig rather than his son, you know, because he would not eat the pig, he would not kill the pig, but he would kill his son, and he killed his son indeed, and his wife Miriam the Hasmonean, because she was accused of trying to poison him. So King Herod the Great, he had quite a few good reasons to believe that somebody will try to get rid of him. He realized that people hated him, and so he felt so insecure that he wanted to have as many fortresses, as better protected fortresses as possible. And he also loved luxury. He was really into big, beautiful, fancy things. So you remember Masada. I believe most of you have been to Masada. So you remember this impossible, incredible, insane location, a cliff in the middle of the desert, and then up there you have one palace, second palace, a bathhouse, a swimming pool, another bathhouse, etc. You remember this. This is King Herod. So King Herod had not just one palace, he actually had the palace in Jerusalem, you know, by Jaffa Gate of today. I had a beautiful small palace in Caesarea by the beach, and he had 7 fortresses which are palaces. One of them is Masada, but that's not enough. I mean, the more the better. Now, King Herod did not invent the locations of these fortresses. He actually inherited them from the Hasmoneans. But Herodian was different. We're looking at a photo of the lower Herodian. Now, as you can see, this is a very flat area. It is not empty because of all these structures King Herod built. But before these structures were built, that was an empty valley, which actually continues to the left and to the right. And this is probably the exact location of that battle between King Herod the Great and the Parthians and Mattathiao Antigonus, where he almost got killed. And so, you know, just thinking of the psychological aspect of the battle, of a location where you almost died, you almost lost your mom, and he was a very good son, at least that. So probably this is why he decided to build the only fortress palace desert from scratch right here. I mean, he decided to build Herodian and name it after him because this is where he's born again. Now, he decided to make this palace of Herodian the biggest in the ancient times. He built the lower Herodian. You see this square structure here? This is a pool, okay? This is a swimming pool with a little island here where you can sit comfortably and get some suntan and get a cocktail probably. And then here you have a bathhouse and you have living room and you have rooms for guests. And this is where the big palace is. I mean, if you want to have some guests, so this is where you get them. But then on top of the hill, you want to have a private palace, which will be as convenient as possible. And this is what people mostly, because it's more impressive. So we're about to start walking up this path. It is very windy, I warn you. And as we start walking, right here on the left, you can see this round-shaped stones, and these are the ballista stones. Actually, these stones belong to a war machine which was used by the Jewish rebels way after King Herod passed away and Herodian was no longer used as a royal palace. So right as we start visiting Herodian, we already see the end of the story. Okay, so we will be back to the end of the story, but keep in mind that we see it as we start. So please follow me. Okay, this is the path we always took even before the stairs were open. So we will keep walking. It's a nice moderate path. I believe there are some people here, including you, Steve. You remember us walking, do you? See? Yeah. Okay. And now this is the part which was not open to the public till about 3 weeks ago. So the monumental, huge, steep staircase. It is really windy up there. And we are about to enter this gate while the slope on our right-hand side and our left-hand side, this is an artificial slope, okay? So as I said, Herodian is partly natural and partly artificial. So what we're gonna do, we are walking upstairs, we are entering the gate, we are visiting the palace, and then we take a left and underground. And then we will be walking underground all the way down here in the belly of the mount through the reservoirs, the water supply system. And then we will visit the theater and the location of the tomb. Okay. So we went upstairs. Well, now you're following my husband. Okay, it was a family trip. And this is the recently restored arches. I mean, this is just amazing. You know, it is restored, it is fixed, but 90% of it is original. I mean, these are the arches which were built by this insane king over 2,000 years ago. So he will be able to climb upstairs and enter his tiny, beautiful, perfect palace and spend there a few hours, a few days, who knows, in isolation and security. So we are walking upstairs. Again, these are the same stairs from a different angle, and this is the view of the surroundings today. So again, just before we enter the palace, you can see a structure which is here. It looks like a tunnel, okay? It may look like a either water supply system or maybe a sewage canal, but probably it is not, because when we look closer, when we really pay attention, we see that it is not as accurate, not as pretty as the walls and the arches, and it is sort of glued to the wall. I mean, you can't tell that it was built later and not by the same people. So probably this one has to do, again, with the rebels, with the Jewish revolt, with the second stage of the existence of Herodian. Because after King Herod passed away 4 BCE, same story as Masada, for about 70 years, nobody really paid attention. Nobody probably used Herodian. And then as the Great Jewish Revolt started in 60 AD, the rebels, at least some of them, escaped to Herodian, which is located only about 12 kilometers, which is about 9 miles from Jerusalem. And this is an amazing location. Again, plenty of water, close enough to Jerusalem and to Bethlehem, and yet you're protected and secure. So probably this is a tunnel which was made and used by the rebels. Either of the Great Revolt, the one when the temple was ruined, or maybe by the last rebels ever of, well, Jewish antiquity, the rebels of Bar Kokhba revolt. And here you can see the arches on top of which the staircase is built. And these arches were used, and that's according to the archaeological finds, by the Bar Kokhba rebels. So it started as a palace, and then it became a tomb, and then it became the last refugee of the last rebels in the 2nd century AD. So we finally made it to the gate, and I want you to take a look at these beautiful frescoes. They're very similar to the frescoes on Masada, which I showed you a week ago, and probably you remember those for yourself. These are the original ones. I mean, they were clean. They were cleaned by a special chemical solution, which takes all the dust and dirt away. So we can see almost the original colors of the frescoes. And again, it's quite amazing that it was painted by somebody for King Herod the Great 2,000 years ago, more than 2,000 years ago. And that's what it looks like. You can also see that it is perfectly kosher. I mean, you see no images, no animals, no pagan gods, God forbid, okay? It's only geometrical paintings. And again, this is exactly as we see on Masada, and this is very different from an average typical Roman fresco of the same time in other parts of the Roman Empire. So King Herod the Great, who, by the way, considered himself Jewish, and he was actually Jewish according to the Judaism of his times, he actually made a point of keeping his private palace in a kosher way. Okay, the reason why I say that he was Jewish at his time, because today, as you know, in order to be Jewish, you have to be born of a Jewish mother. King Herod the Great mother was not Jewish, but back then Judaism was defined according to your father. And since his father was converted to Judaism, he was he was a Gil, so Herod was considered Jewish as well. Now, another something you can see at these frescoes here on this right side, you see we have a plaster which is on top of a plaster, which is on top of a plaster, which is on top of the very first layer, which means that the gate was fixed and redecorated and made better during the times of King Herod. Now, we know that Herodian was built after 40 BCE, and King Herod passed away in 4 BCE, okay? So we have only 36 years at the most of the existence of Herodian as a palace, and fixing walls 4 times in 36 years, that's quite impressive, okay? You want to have everything perfect at all times. Now, this part of Herodian is not yet open to the public. You see that they're still working on it, and quite soon it seems like it's going to be done, and then they will open it. This is a corridor which goes all around the palace. The gate is here, okay? This is a photo which I took from the gate. So I'm standing right next to these frescoes, and on my right-hand side and left-hand side, I see this corridor. What was this corridor used for and why, we don't know. It is sort of a blind corridor which goes all around the inner part of the palace. Anyhow, it's very impressive. It's close to the public. I hope that next time you come, we will be walking this corridor together. So we are at the gate, and that's about time for us to turn around and finally enter the inner part of Herodian. So please, you follow me. Okay. It's not just very windy, it is also very, very sunny. And here we are. This is what it looks like. Now I want us to take a look all around. Okay, and then we will be visiting the various parts. This is where the synagogue is, and this is where the mikveh is, and this is the round watchtower you saw in this reconstruction model before, and this is the gate we just came from, and this is the bathhouse. You see, it's a relatively small area, but it should be small because it is meant to be a private palace for isolation and good life. And these are the stairs which we used to use before the monumental original stairs were open. So last time you came, we hiked this path, and then we were standing up here looking downhill, and then we walked downstairs into the palace itself. So we shall visit, just a short visit to the bathhouse. We've been to a bigger, nicer, and fully excavated bathhouse in Masada. So you remember that the bathhouse will have 4 parts to it, right? We have the changing room, and then the cold room, the moderate room, the hot room. And here we have this dome here. And this dome is part of the bathhouse. And this is the most ancient original dome in Israel. This one is from the times of King Herod the Great. Obviously, it was made sure that it's safe to stand down there. And each time I'm standing below this dome, I just look up and think, wow, it is 2,000 years old. Are you sure that I should be there? It's like, but yeah, probably. This is the oldest surviving dome we have. And there is also a small display of some artifacts, pieces of pillars and capitals, just to give you that feeling of luxury, of good life. So a few more artifacts which are found around Herodian. We don't know where these pillars used to be originally, what was on top of them, but just look at these decorations, look how accurate the work is. This is a hard limestone. So somebody who makes stone-made sculptures just for his own, as a hobby today, he told me that such a pillar will take a few months of carving, and you have to be a very, very good specialist in order to make these decorations. And we don't even know who that was, but he was a carving master for the Roman Empire. And yeah, well, I don't know if I wish that I was able to visit the palace. I mean, if I was 2,050 years older, let's say, so I would have a chance to visit Herodian and to see how beautiful it was in reality. But then I also think that nobody will let me in. So probably it's better as it is. At least I can see the ruins. Now, next stop is this is the round watchtower. You'll know. And this is the southeast corner of Herodian, and just part of the palace, which was later transformed by the rebels into the mikveh. We know that this is a mikveh because of this lower part. You see, this is a plaster, which is waterproof, and there are stairs down here, which we don't see right now. And this is a very simple, small mikveh, which was used by the rebels. This is for sure. I mean, we didn't find mikvehs from King Herod's times And if he would want to have a mikveh, so that would definitely be much better, prettier, better organized. You can see that this mikveh is actually carved into the floor of the palace. And yeah, we can imagine the rebels who had to leave Jerusalem, who didn't know how long they will survive, but they wanted to keep the Jewish rules and Jewish rituals. And yeah, they definitely needed a mikveh. We know the mikveh in Masada and his as well. Now, this is the synagogue, very similar to the synagogue in Masada, very similar to the synagogue in Magdala, if you've been to this tour with me. Simple, more or less, almost square room with these seats on all sides, with the pillars supporting the roof, and that's it. The synagogue at that moment was not the synagogue we know today. I was talking about it in Magdala. We have to keep in mind that 2,000 years ago, the synagogue was a place of assembly. It was a place of gathering and teaching and learning and debating. It was not a place of worship, because the place of worship was in Jerusalem. It was the temple only. Judaism, as we practice it today, as we know it today, Judaism with no temple, Judaism with prayers but not offerings, was not yet invented. I mean, people came to Herodian immediately after the Great Revolt started, and they stayed there until 1 year after the destruction of the temple. So it was before Judaism as we know Judaism now. So again, I'm sitting on this bench, and you're welcome to join me and sit down and reflect. You know, just imagine yourself being an ancient Jew, escaped from Jerusalem shortly before the destruction of the temple, or maybe shortly after the destruction of the temple, when nobody had any idea whatsoever how should we behave now. And all they had as the place of gathering, of a tradition of spiritual support, was the synagogue. So I don't even know if they prayed there. I don't know if they thought of facing Jerusalem. We don't really know what they did here, but they were definitely thinking and definitely praying in their hearts. Okay, that. Now, each time we visit the desert, each time we visit a fortress in the desert, so we should always ask ourselves, where was the water? Did they have enough water? How did they store the water? And quite often, the water reservoirs are the most impressive part of the palace, and Herodian is no exception. So look, we are walking downstairs. You have to be very careful because we're using modern stairs, which are metal. They're a bit slippery, very steep. So please watch your step and watch your head, and please follow me. Okay, we are walking downstairs. Okay, so far so good. And now we keep walking underground. Okay, can you see me? Okay, I'm down there. Okay, and we keep walking. We keep walking downstairs. We actually walk almost the entire mount from top to bottom, deep inside. Okay, you don't have to rush as I'm rushing. Okay, just walk slowly. Now, what we are doing now, we are walking in these, well, let's call it tunnels, which were made by the rebels, and these tunnels connected the water cisterns, which were made by King Herod the Great. I will show you later a graphical description of what it looked like, but I just want you to keep in mind that nowadays we have these steep stairs, which are not very convenient, but okay. But when the rebels lived on top of that hill, they did not have these stairs. We're not even sure how exactly they used the tunnels. Maybe wooden ladder, maybe even a ladder made of ropes. But they used these interconnecting tunnels to escape from the Romans and make sure that, they will just disappear in the belly of this mountain. By the way, I don't know if anybody of you guys now, you've been to Herodian with me when there was a lady. She was afraid of cats, a volunteer, afraid of nothing but cats. And there was a cat we met in the tunnel. That was really, that was a surprise because the lady was so scared and the cat was scared as well. And I was afraid of the collision, so I rushed forward. I got the cat and I rushed all the way out to, to make sure that we will not meet the cat again. It was, it was a tough moment. Anyways, so we keep walking in the tunnels, and what you see here on the right, this is the graphical description of the underground. We started walking from this palace, okay, this is the palace on top of the mount, and then we walked in that tunnel and we made it to a big cistern which was made by King Herod the Great. You see there are a total of 4 cisterns which were carved by the workers of King Herod, and then there were the tunnels which connected the water cisterns made by the rebels of the first revolt and then the second revolt. So we are using both the tunnels and the water cisterns. The cisterns used and stored the water which came from the rainfall on top of Herodian, but this is probably not enough. So there was probably another water supply system, sort of an aqueduct, which would bring the water from the surroundings to the cisterns, just as we saw on Masada. On this photo here, you can see a small fraction of one of the water reservoirs. You can see the stairs leading down there, so one can reach the water if the level gets low, and you can also fix and clean the reservoir. And this is only one of them. I mean, in order to realize how huge it is, you must make it body and soul. And finally, we get out back to the open air, and we will be visiting the theater. This is what it looks like. Okay, you saw it in this little movie in the beginning. Okay, more photos. And okay, just for you to look around. This is a relatively small theater. It was big. Well, it was enough for between 300 to 400 people at the time. Just to compare to Caesarea, just because I believe a few of you have been there. So Caesarea can host almost 4,000 people. So Caesarea is about 10 times as big as this one. And the theater in Beit She'an in Scythopolis is even bigger than this. So it is a small private theater only for the best guests. This is what the inner room, the royal lounge of the theater looked like before the restoration. You can see the frescoes, quite similar to the frescoes we saw at the gate. And after the restoration, well, they not just restored this room and opened it to the public, but they also made a movie which helps our imagination, fortunately. Unfortunately, since COVID-19, they don't want too many people to be in the same room at the same time. So they let you in, you watch that movie for 9 minutes, and then they literally kick you out. So you can't really spend time and enjoy this beautifully restored frescoes, but hopefully, you know, with the progress of vaccination, things will improve. We will be watching now just, you know, a few seconds of the movie. They highlight and make the decorations better visible. And you can also see that there are, well, it looks like windows, okay? It looks as if there are windows, as if there are pillars, as if we had a 3D, even though it's only frescoes, which is quite impressive. Does it look like windows to you? Well, it does on the movie. Just a few more photos. You see the whole room has these fake windows, and through the fake windows you can see beautiful landscape which has nothing in common with the surrounding view. Actually, it looks more like Tuscany, maybe. It looks way more European, Italian, rather than Judean desert. And each window has a different view. I mean, each window is unique. And one of the windows, which is especially interesting, okay, this is what you see. You look at the fake window and you see a fake battleship. See? Now, again, we can see that the theater was built and then it was fixed and restored and the decorations were changed. And as you can see here, we do have people. We do have, well, it is much less kosher than the frescoes of the gate and the first frescoes I showed you. So probably King Herod decided to fix the theater and make it more appropriate for a very special guest he had. And this is Marcus Agrippa, who was the second after the Roman emperor. And according to the Roman chronics, we know that Marcus Agrippa visited Herodian back in 15 BCE. So we know exactly, if that theory is right, so we can tell exactly when these frescoes were made. And then, if we are right, so it's not just a battleship, but this is a ship which has to do, or which is here to tell the story of one of the most crucial battles in the history of the Roman Empire, and this is the Battle of Actium. And this is the battle when Augustus became the king, became the ruler of the Roman Empire, and Marcus Agrippa was the commander of the battle on behalf of Augustus. Anyhow, the theory says that King Herod the Great wanted to surprise and impress his honorable guest by making new frescoes which tell his own story, in a way, story of Marcus Agrippa. And he made sure that he will have the best wine, exactly the same wine he used to drink at home. How do we know? Because we found pottery shards. We found inscriptions on broken jars which label the name of the wine, which we know was the favorite for Marcus Agrippa. I mean, and you are in the middle of the desert. So the guest could see the battle and the wine, and of course he had a beautiful bath for his disposal, and I'm sure he was happy about King Herod. And when he came back to Rome, he told the emperor that, you know what, King Herod is a good king. Let's let him rule as long as he lives. And that's exactly what happened. So right here we can see again the two phases of the paintings of theater. Okay, we can see the new one and the old one. Everything was fixed and made for Marcus Agrippa. And then, for whatever reason, King Herod decided that instead of leaving the palace as it is, he would rather make Herodian his death place. He wanted to have his monumental tomb right here, where he almost died 36 years ago. So the theater was destroyed. We have some evidences of destruction. You see, this is something which looks like a graffiti. We don't really know what it is, but it definitely damages the wall. Probably that was made by one of these workers who was there to ruin the beautiful theater, which was built just a few years ago. And right here we can see a graffiti that looks as if it was made yesterday, but that was made, back then, over 2,000 years ago. And well, here, I'm not sure you can see it, but if you cannot, the reason inscription in Aramaic, if you cannot see it, it says Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet. Okay, in Aramaic, almost impossible. You will believe me, it is there. And it also mentioned the year 22, which is 15 BCE, which is the time when Agrippa visited Herodian. And probably immediately after that, King Herod decided to turn the palace into a tomb. And well, we jump just for a few seconds because my time is almost over. The one advantage of the virtual tour, we can jump to, hey Neely, we can jump to Jericho just for a few minutes. I mean, normally if you want to drive from Herodian to Jericho, that would take us about 45 minutes. But now, just for one moment, we jump to Jericho. And the reason why I want us to visit Jericho just for a few seconds is because this is where King Herod passed away. Okay? He was very sick. He was very miserable. We have different medical theories to what sort of disease he had. Probably he was poisoned, by the way. Anyhow, he passed away in his beautiful winter palace in Jericho. What you see here is a quite enigmatic structure, but this one has to do with the bathhouse, which used to be in the palace. And here you can see the wall. You can also see same type of a wall nearby. This is a very unique style, which is called okay, it will come back to me. Anyhow, opus reticulatum. All right, that's the name. Anyhow, what is special about this architectural style is that it was used by King Herod only. So whenever you see these, you see weird, it looks like little wooden pieces, but it's made of clay. Anyhow, you see this, you know that it belongs to King Herod. Here you can see Noam at the stairs leading into a mikveh, which is inside the palace of King Herod, but this mikveh is actually even older than the palace. This mikveh belongs to the Hasmonean period, and that means that this is the oldest known mikveh in Israel and I guess in the world. Okay, this particular mikveh, Noam doesn't seem to be happy about it. He could not care less. But this mikveh is over 21 centuries old. So anyways, this is what the archaeologists believe the palace looked like at its best. Okay, we have one wing of the palace, and then we have a bridge, and then we have some beautiful open air square, and then we have another little fortified private palace. You see, King Herod loved to be well protected. And in between the two wings of the palace, we have a riverbed of Wadi Kelt or Nahal Prat. Well, most of the time it is just a dry riverbed, a little valley there. But occasionally, when there is a heavy rainfall in Jerusalem, when there is a flash flood, so then it will become a river for 2 weeks a year, maybe. Okay, so this is the palace of King Herod, and this is where he passed away. And then amazing, beautiful, long funeral procession walked from Jericho to here. And this is where the tomb was built. This is what we believe the tomb looked like. and it was located on a platform which is here. This is the original platform. You can see the angle here at the bottom on the right. You can see the corner of that platform on top of which the tomb used to be. And this is a well-restored sarcophagus, the most beautiful, the most accurate, the most delicate sarcophagus ever found in Israel, with no name on it. But this sarcophagus was built, you see, this is what it looked like when it was found. I mean, it was broken into hundreds of pieces. And that lady worked very hard. She's a worker of the Israeli Antiquity Authority to fix the sarcophagus. And it is believed by this gentleman, Professor Netzer, late Professor Netzer, who found the tomb. It was a dream of his for 30 years. He was looking for this tomb and he finally found it. And he was killed by an accident right there at the tomb of King Herod. This is a crazy story. It happened 10 years ago. But anyhow, when he found these pieces of a sarcophagus, and when these pieces were fixed into a sarcophagus, which you could see before, he said, well, the only explanation to such a beautiful sarcophagus being so, fiercely ruined is that this is the one of King Herod. And the rebels who hated King Herod bitterly, as most of the other Jews, they worked hard to get rid of it. So one last thing, you see, this is what the place, this is what Herodian looked like at the very end of it. See, no theater. The theater used to be here. Staircase, maybe it was open, maybe it was covered as well. Today, it is assumed that the staircase was covered as well, and so the palace was not used at all. I mean, it was simply, abandoned up until the rebels came and occupied it. And this is the tomb. This is the tomb of King Herod and his wife, probably his wife as well, which stayed there being beautiful and hated for 70 years, and then it was ruined. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed Herodian. I hope you will be back to Israel as soon as possible. And this is the Pay As You Wish tour, as you know, as always. So thank you all. I will stop sharing and I will look at the chat. Whoa, we have quite a bit. So I will start reading and I will start answering. If you want to add something, if you want to just unmute yourself and talk to me, so you're welcome to do that. Okay, Zatara, looks like it's really spread out, while all the other towns look like they are on the hilltops. Is because New York settlement? No, Zatara is an old village, just like all the others. There are no new villages actually. I mean, well, they are. Okay, back in 1982, the Bedouins of the Judean desert were banned from moving from place to place. Basically, back in 1982, it became illegal to be a nomad in Israel. And since the Bedouins are nomads by definition, so that was a very problematic issue for them. But what they had to do, and they little by little they did, they settled down. So some of these Bedouins, they settled down just along road number 1. And if you drive from Jerusalem towards the Dead Sea, so on your right and your left side, you see, shacks and dwellings and goats. I guess you know what I'm talking about. And these are the dwellings of the Bedouins. The most famous one is the Khan el-Ahmar. anyways, the Bedouins had to settle down, and yes, quite a few of them settled in Zatara. So Zatara grew bigger, but the natural the Palestinian population and Bedouin, among others, they naturally grow bigger. You know, the average rate, I think it's 6 point something children per family in a Bedouin family today, and so you know they naturally multiply, and naturally they need more houses.
Julia?
Yeah. Hey, Mark.
Quickly, hi, thank you very much. Two things. One, my wife and I visited in 2017. We had another tour guide whom we had met on another tour. And he took us to Herodian. It looks like they've discovered a lot more than since we were there. My question is, the tomb of Herod, the top of it looks very much like what is said to be the tomb of Avshalom. What is the nature, what is the meaning of the structure, that particular type of appearance?
Well, I don't know. The common explanation is that, you know, in Judaism, there is a term of nefesh. Okay, nefesh or yad. Nefesh means soul or spirit. And nefesh is also a physical thing to memorize person. So it is probably just to make the tomb more evident, more obvious, and more impressive. And the tomb of King Herod, we don't know what it looked like. Okay, we don't have detailed descriptions. And it is made similar to the tomb of Avshalom because the tomb of Avshalom is something we actually have. Okay, it's no good explanation, but this is what we currently have.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, with the palaces being built, was that like a public works that kept economy going and making high employment? Well, not precisely. Most of the builders, not just of King Herod's palaces, but generally speaking of the Roman Empire, most of the builders were soldiers because the Roman army, unlike IDF, you would be recruited for either 25 to 30 years. It was not compulsory. It was, you know, you volunteered, that was your career. But then you have a soldier who is there for like 25 years. You have to do something with that soldier, and obviously you cannot fight constantly, and you don't always have horse. And so in between the battles, they would build. That was their occupation. They got paid 12 months a year, and they had to be efficient. You know, they had to be useful. And so generally speaking, the Roman structure, the Roman Empire was built by the soldiers. In addition to that, yes, there were slaves. And in addition to that, there were prisoners of war. Because, you know, prisoners of war, they are former soldiers, so they are stronger, they are men, they survived. And then you use them as builders as well. What kind of entertainment were given at the theater? Yes, we actually have quite a few descriptions. Most people, they think of gladiator fights, which is not true, because the gladiators were fighting not in theaters, but rather in amphitheaters, which are round structures instead of a half circle as a theater, because well, if you're fighting, you cannot face the audience. And so theaters were for plays, were for theaters. Most of the plays had to do with mythology, and some of them were tragedies, comedies. I mean, you know, just quite similar to modern theater plays. What else? Was the Battle of Actium one of the enchantment given to the flooded Rome? Well, I don't know. Mm, I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure. The Colosseum in Rome could have been flooded. I don't know. That's a question we should ask somebody who knows better about Colosseum. Okay, sorry. But probably, I mean, if you could flood the Colosseum, so why not? This battle was, as I said, one of the most important ever. Was Herod's body found, or was the tomb? Yeah, well, the Herod's body was not found. Some bones were indeed found, even though probably these bones did not belong to King Herod. They were, from later periods. But anyhow, there was no way we could identify, King Herod's bones, because there's no way we can perform genetic analysis. I mean, we have nobody to compare to. So yes, there were bones. Probably these were not bones of King Herod, even though, this is a very problematic issue in archaeology in Israel, generally speaking, because as soon as bones are found, these bones might possibly belong to Jews, and then, according to the Jewish tradition, they should not be violated, they should not be touched. And there is an ultra-Orthodox organization called Atra Kadisha, and their goal is to prevent violating of Jewish tombs. And so even in the cases when, archaeologists know for sure that this is not a Jewish tomb and this is a different period of time, and no matter what, Atra Kadisha don't believe the archaeologists, and they will do whatever they can to prevent the archaeological dig from continuing. And so Israeli archaeologists, they always try to hide the bones, and they prefer that nobody will know that these are bones. And a good friend of mine who was an archaeology student, so they were specifically told that if you find bones, you tell nobody but the archaeologist in charge of the dig, because if somebody will know, it can cause all sorts of problems, and that was true for Herodian as well. Herod wouldn't have built mikvahs. He was not following Jewish laws of the ritual baths. Well, Wendy, I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, Herod did not build mikvahs as far as we know, but he was Jewish according to the definition of Judaism at the time, because his father was Jewish. So I'm not sure if you'd like to ask me if you're still there, so you're welcome. Tomb was not discovered until 2007. Yes, that's true. Professor Netta, I mean, we did know that the tomb is to be found at Herodian, because it is specifically mentioned, it is specifically described by Josephus Flavius. So we knew that the tomb must be there, but nobody knew where exactly. And actually, most archaeologists believe that the tomb will be either at Lower Herodian. At some point, they thought that this island, sort of round island in the middle of the pool down there, is the tomb, and then they look for the tomb at the top at the palace. So actually, the tomb was finally found only by an accident. Nobody thought that the tomb will be located sort of on the slope of the hill in the middle of nothing. It was a very surprising location for the tomb. And so Professor Netzer looked for the tomb for 30 years, I'm serious. And finally, he found it only in 2007. Okay, where were the walls that came tumbling down? Well, this is okay. We read in the Bible that when Joshua ben Nun approached Jericho, so he was commanded to take his people and circle the walls of Jericho, right? And then after the seventh day, the walls fall down and Jericho was taken over. So This is the biblical story, which is a fundamental one in Judaism, of course. But unfortunately, as far as science understands the archaeological finds, okay, I'm very careful in saying that, but as far as archaeologists are concerned, there were no walls of Jericho at the right period to be the walls ruined by Joshua ben Nun. And even more so, the archaeologists, as far as they know now, we don't have people living in Jericho. Actually, Jericho was not inhabited. Jericho did not exist as a town in the time of Joshua ben Nun. All right, so there are no walls. There is no Jericho when Joshua ben Nun crossed the Jordan River and approached the walls of Jericho. So we have a contradiction here between science and Bible. Okay. Yeah, Herod was Edomian and they were converted to Judaism. That's true, but he was born Jewish. So yeah, archaeologists who fell into the death in Herodian. Well, yes, this is really, I would say, if that was a movie, so we would say that, oh, what a stupid idea. Okay, these guys at Hollywood, but it actually happened. I mean, what happened was that when Ehud Netzer found the tomb, he was so excited about it. I mean, you can only imagine how excited a scientist is finding something he was looking for his entire career. So anyways, he was guiding tours, he was guiding students, he was guiding scholars there. It was so important for him that everybody will see the tomb and everybody will agree that this is indeed the tomb of King Herod. And it happened 3 years after the discovery of the tomb back in 2010. And he was talking to a group of students, and there was a little fence. You know, now it is everything is open to the public, and so everything is made safe and secure, and you know. But back then it was just, you know, an archaeological site, and almost nobody visited. So there was a little wooden fence surrounding the location of the tomb. And Professor Netzer was standing with his back to the tomb, facing the students who were facing the tomb. And then he just leaned on this little fence behind him, and it was not strong enough. So the fence collapsed, and Professor Netzer fell on his back on the platform, which was the base of the tomb, and he passed away. I mean, he was evacuated to a hospital, but he didn't make it. So he found his death in the tomb of King Herod. They were, you know, he was not buried there, of course, but it was, I remember this, you know, it was all over the newspapers and the news. He was such a well-known figure. And it was so hard to imagine that he found the tomb and he died shortly after that. So this is, yeah, that's the story. Yes, General Shuki is here, Brigadier General, that's true. He told me that he would like to join us, and of course he is welcome. Okay, due to the location of Herodian, did the Palestinian Authority have to agree to the excavations? No, the answer is no, because the location of Herodian, okay, was known starting from mid-19th century. I mean, the tomb was found recently, but the Herodian as a site was known long before. And therefore, when Oslo Accords were signed, and when the West Bank was divided into these three parts, Area A, which is fully controlled by the Palestinians, Area B, which is partly controlled by Israel, partly controlled by the Palestinians, and Area C, which is fully controlled by Israel, okay? So the Israeli delegation made sure that Herodian, as a national park, will be part of Area C, which means that Herodian is fully controlled by the Israeli government. And so the Palestinian Authority have no legal right to do anything whatsoever there. And even more so, legally, the Palestinians are not allowed to visit Herodian because it is Area C, just like the settlements. You know, a Palestinian who wishes to visit a settlement for whatever reason, they have to have a special permit. So, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, David.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to see you. Okay. What language were plays performed in the theater? Okay. That was Latin. That was Latin. And that was also Greek, because Greek was the language of the scholars, of the educated people, while Latin was the language of the common, you know, of this just regular average working class. It was called a vulgar, you know, language. So anyways, it depends whom you wanted to make happy. So it depends who was your audience. The plays would be either Latin or Greek. Herod Knight never have been buried, might have never been here because he was afraid body would be murdered. Well, I don't know. I mean, all we know about Herod's tomb is what Josephus Flavius tells us. So, you know, we can either trust him or not. And this is a good question, generally speaking. You know, we don't necessarily believe everything Josephus Flavius tells us. And sometimes we know for sure that he was wrong. On the other hand, he is the only source of knowledge. So, I mean, maybe. Colosseum. Okay, Gail writes, the first naval battle at the Colosseum was held at 30 AD during the arena's opening ceremony. Okay. Okay, and the emperor ordered the amphitheater to be flooded. Okay, well, now we know. Great. Thank you, Gail. Where are you? I don't know. Thank you. When did Judaism move from patrilineal to matrilineal? Well, this is a good question, and we don't have a specific answer to this. This is very weird, but actually I've asked this question quite a few times, quite a few different scholars and rabbis, and I would assume that it will be recorded somewhere, but it is not. So I got different answers starting from Bar Kokhba revolt all the way to the medieval times. Okay, so I don't know. If you have a scholar who knows the right answer, please let me know. All right. They all agreed though but I mean, they did not agree about when it happened. They all agreed about why it happened. And that happened because, you know, it is easier to spot the mother rather than father. And so after revolt, after wars, after pogroms, okay, of different kinds, women were raped. And so you did not know for sure who is the father, and you didn't know who mother is. And so instead of declaring so many babies as mamzer, you know, as illegitimate children and non-Jewish maybe, it was simpler to declare that, you know what, we know the mother is Jewish, that's it, that's enough. So we know that it happened because of, you know, just the fact that mother is more reliable, okay, than father, but we don't know when it happened. Okay, again, well, same thing. Did Judaism go by the father and not the mother at that time? Yes, definitely. This is something we know for sure. Judaism go by the father and not the mother. We have numerous examples of people whose father was Jewish and mother was not Jewish. That was quite common, and they were considered to be Jewish. Okay, so he was born into Judaism, or he was converted. Well, no, he was converted. He had to be converted because he was born in 74 And sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, now I know for sure. Okay, the Idumeans were converted by the Hasmoneans back in 140 BCE. Okay, while King Herod was born about 70 years later, which means that he was born Jewish. That's for sure. Okay, the Idumeans were converted. This story has to do with a great national park of Marisha Bet Guvrin with thousands of caves, and this is when Marisha was actually abandoned. It was abandoned by the Idumeans who did not want to convert. All right, that's a different story. That's a different tour we will have sometime in the future. But yes, King Herod was definitely born Jewish, of a Jewish father. Okay. Howard says that if we look at YouTube, Dr. Henry Abramson recently posted an interesting video on this. Okay, I will look for it. I'm spoken to do the same. Strange sound coming from. Oh.
Julie, it's okay. There's just been a strange sound coming from through your mic.
Okay. Well, maybe it is the chair. Okay, I will look at it. Okay, Ilana, sorry. That was probably for me, and I didn't know that this is for me. Okay, forget it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you heard this weird sound, sorry, apologize. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. You've never been to this site? You should. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, the average Jew spoke Aramaic, not Latin. This is definitely true. But the Jews did not, or at least they were not supposed to participate in theater plays. I mean, according to the Mishnah and later the Talmud, it was specifically forbidden by the sages for the Jews to visit theaters. All right, and so we again different historical sources. They are talking about these two languages I've mentioned before for the plays, and maybe Jews did go to theaters. Who knows? But they were definitely the minority, and so there was no reason to bother for them. And yes, now regarding Aramaic and Hebrew. We have so much written, there's so many debates, there's so many lectures about the question, what language an average Jew spoke, was it Hebrew or Aramaic? It is an endless debate, one of the two, okay? We can have a whole presentation about the topic, and the more you listen, the less you know. Okay, Sheila, thank you for coming. Thank you from Israel to Toronto. Is it true that the Israeli soldiers ran up Herodian at the end of their training? No, this is nothing. This is way too simple for them. I mean, some soldiers will run up Masada. That's true. I've never heard of somebody running up a Herodian. I mean, it is possible, but it is so easy. I mean, I can run Herodian, so you don't have to be a soldier to do that. So I would assume that this is no final, exam for them. Okay. Seems like I'm done.
I think that's it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for supporting me spiritually and. Otherwise, I hope to see you again next week. Thank you, David. Thank you all, Steve and Ilana. And next week, we're going to around Gaza Strip. Okay, this is something most people never do. I mean, you are an exception. I mean, at least some of you must have been next to Gaza Strip, to the road, and maybe Nativa Sarah, or maybe other Yad Mordechai. I'm not sure, but somehow, well, not somehow, for obvious reasons, most tourists never go anywhere near Gaza Strip, and most people don't do that for two reasons. One, because they have no idea, like, what can I do there? What is there? And second reason is, oh, it is too dangerous. Okay, So next week we will be touring the surroundings of Gaza Strip. We will be talking about the threat a little bit, but we will be more talking about other things which are like great reasons to go there as tourists whenever possible. So I hope you will join more Tuesday and me Thursday. And thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you. It looks like our skills as a community asking questions is improving.